In the rolling hills of Bethlehem, under the golden rays of the sun, a young shepherd boy named David was tending to his father's sheep. The soft bleating of the flock echoed through the quiet valley as David moved among them, guiding them toward fresh green pastures. David was the youngest of 8 brothers, and while his older brothers were warriors, David was often left behind to care for the sheep. He didn't mind, though. He loved his time alone with the sheep, listening to the gentle rustling of the leaves, the chirping of birds, and the sweet stillness of the world around him. But one morning, as David sat with his sheep, his father Jesse called out to him. "David!" Jesse's voice was warm but commanding. "Come here, son. I have a task for you." David hurried to his father, eager to know what was needed. "Take this food to your brothers," Jesse said, handing David a basket with loaves of bread and some cheese. "They are in the camp with King Saul. Go to the battlefield and see how they are doing. Bring back word to me." David, always willing to help, immediately agreed. With a quick glance at the sheep and a prayer for their safety, he set off on the journey to the battlefield. His heart was light, but his mind was curious about what awaited him. The camp of Israel was a sight to behold. Thousands of soldiers gathered under the banner of King Saul. But it wasn't the soldiers who caught David's attention. It was the fear that hung heavy in the air like a dark cloud. The army stood still, silent, their faces filled with dread as they looked across the valley. David approached a soldier and asked, "What's going on? Why are the people so afraid?" The soldier replied, "Have you not heard? A giant, Goliath of Gath, has come to challenge us. He's 9 feet tall, wearing armor that no man can pierce. For 40 days he has taunted us, and not a single man has dared face him. The king has promised great riches and his daughter's hand in marriage to the man who defeats him, but no one is brave enough." David, though young and untrained in the ways of war, felt a stirring in his heart. He couldn't understand why his brothers, strong men of Israel, were cowering in fear. His eyes searched the battlefield and landed on his older brothers, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah. They stood with their comrades, their faces grim, their eyes locked on the giant across the valley. David made his way toward them, carrying the basket of food. "Here is the bread and cheese, as my father asked," he said, handing them the provisions. But his brothers were not pleased to see him. Eliab, the oldest, scowled at him. "Why are you here, David?" Eliab's voice was harsh. "You should be back with the sheep. Who is taking care of them now? You've come just to watch the battle, haven't you?" David was hurt by his brother's words, but he didn't let them stop him. "What have I done now?" "I was just asking what's happening," he replied, his voice calm but firm. At that moment, Goliath stepped forward, his voice booming across the valley. "I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me. If he is able to kill me, we will be your servants. But if I kill him, you will serve us." David was stunned. This giant, this bully, had been taunting Israel for far too long. His anger rose, but it was not for himself. He was furious for the sake of God's people and God's honor. He couldn't understand why no one had stepped forward to face Goliath. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine who dares defy the armies of the living God? David cried out, his voice full of conviction. Word of David's bold words quickly spread through the camp. Soldiers murmured among themselves, amazed at his confidence. Soon the news reached King Saul. 1 Samuel 17, verse 31 to 32. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Saul sent for David, and as the young shepherd stood before the king, he spoke with unwavering faith. David, you are just a boy, Saul said, looking at him skeptically. How can you fight this giant? He has been a warrior from his youth, and you are but a shepherd. David's eyes burned with passion as he spoke. I have fought lions and bears to protect my father's sheep, and just as the Lord delivered me from their paws, he will deliver me from this Philistine. The battle is the Lord's, and he will fight for us. Saul, seeing the faith and courage in David's heart, relented. Go then, and may the Lord be with you, he said. Saul offered David his own armor, but it was too heavy for the young shepherd. Instead, David took his sling and 5 smooth stones from the brook. He placed them in his pouch and set out to face Goliath. As David walked toward the battlefield, Goliath saw him and laughed. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" Goliath mocked, his voice full of disdain. "Come here, and I will feed your flesh to the birds." But David stood firm. "You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and all the world will know that there is a God in Israel." With that, David took a stone, placed it in his sling, and began to swing it with skill and precision. He let the stone fly, and in an instant, it struck Goliath in the forehead, sinking deep into his skull. The giant staggered, his massive body toppling to the ground with a mighty crash. The armies of Israel erupted in cheers, and the Philistines fled in terror. And as Goliath fell face down, David ran up, took the giant's sword, and cut off his head. When the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they panicked and fled, and the Israelites pursued them in victory. Please subscribe, like, and share, and thank you for watching.